Well met! I am Justice, and I am joined here in this video by a voice that you guys probably know fairly well by now. Owen is here with me.
Yes.
Excellent. And we are here to talk about an announcement that was made today. Kind of a big deal, I think, for Hearthstone. It's called Heroic Brawl. For those of you not interested, I'm going to pull up a quick little description on the screen. Essentially, it's the format of Arena, which is you're playing to either 12 wins or 3 losses, whichever comes first. The difference is that it is constructed. You will create a standard format deck, and you will play through the gauntlet with that deck. Just like Arena, you will not be able to change your deck in your run, and you will be playing only against other people that are also in the Heroic Brawl. Now, why am I going to do this, you might ask? Good reason. As you see on the bottom of the screen there, the rewards for 12 wins, kind of insane. You get 50 card packs, that's 5-0. As you can see, a good amount of gold, a lot of arcane dust, and not 1, not 2, but 3 golden legendaries. Golden legendaries.
Yeah, although I will mention that I don't know that Paltris or Ronin is all that good, but hey, it's 600 dust.
It is. It's a lot of dust, so even more dust. So obviously the rewards for 12 wins in Heroic Brawl are a lot better than 12 wins in Arena. Now there is a caveat, and this will be one of the things that we talk about, I'm sure, which is that this is a 1 week only event that is replacing, I'm not 100% sure if it's replacing or in addition to the regular Tavern Brawl.
It is replacing.
It is, I thought so. Okay. So it is replacing the Tavern Brawl for the coming week, and it will just be for 1 week. So now that I've introduced it, I'm going to pass it on to you, Owen, so you can start giving your thoughts.
Okay, well, my experience with this initially was on my way to work today. I saw the vlog posted from the devs who do the Tavern Brawls, and they kind of explained their thought process behind it, which was fair. Basically, their argument of why to do it this way is that they use Tavern Brawl as a way to introduce new and exciting ways, and one way they can do that is changing up the way that the game is played, and that they also see Tavern Brawl as an opportunity to cater to different varieties of players. So this week's Tavern Brawl, Heroic Tavern Brawl, is going to be geared toward those players who take Hearthstone very seriously, who are very, very competitive and want to really test their might in a way that they don't normally get an opportunity to on ladder or elsewhere. One upside I do think that this has is that if you want to really test your deck, like seriously, and you just don't have the time or desire to grind up to legend, I think that this will be a very good avenue to really test your deck building skill, and to see whether or not you actually have what it takes to beat some of the better decks out there. Because I imagine the first few wins are probably going to be fairly easy to get for most average players, I would say. But I suspect, probably similar to Arena, once you hit around the 5 or 6 win mark, you're going to start seeing players who are incrementally better than the ones you were playing against before. So for that reason, I think that it's certainly an interesting thing to do, and I think that Tavern Brawl is probably the best way to test this kind of thing. One thing that you didn't exactly touch on is that the entry fee for this, there's going to be an entry fee for this week's Tavern Brawl. And it's going to be in the amount of
it's either $9.99 US or 1,000 in-game gold.
Yes. So that is quite a bit more expensive than your typical Arena run, which normally costs you about $2 or 100 and some odd gold.
150, yeah.
150 gold, yes. So yeah, overall I think that this is an appropriate place to test it. I'm not sure exactly how it will go. I think without seeing the full rewards bracket, it will kind of be difficult to judge whether or not this is actually going to be good dollar value. Mm-hmm. You and I both have a mutual friend who their first question is, yes, I will play it if the reward for 03 is worth $10.
Right. Which that specifically, and it's unfortunate that it wasn't given in an official medium, but I believe it was Ben Brode on Twitter, if I'm not mistaken, stated that the reward for going 0-3 will be 1 pack. So
okay.
If you cannot win a game, you are really coming out behind. And I think it's a fair point that you brought up, which is that we don't know the full spectrum of between 0 wins to 12 wins. We know what those two are. We don't know what comes in between. So we don't know what the break-even point is. Like, we've established, or rather it's been established that in Arena, if you want to go, quote-unquote infinite, you need to average about 7 wins per run. We don't know where the break-even point is in Heroic Brawl. I will say that initial feedback on Twitter, or not on Twitter, sorry, on Reddit, has been fairly negative, because people are saying, well, in Arena you can get lucky because, a good player might have a bad deck, or a really good deck might be piloted by a bad player, so you can get lucky and still do well even at higher wins, whereas once you're getting to the higher wins here, it's almost guaranteed to be a good player with a good deck. So getting to 12 wins in Heroic Brawl is likely going to be significantly more challenging than 12 wins in Arena, and 12 wins in Arena is still quite an accomplishment. It's still not an easy thing to do. People are very concerned about the cost-reward ratio because of that, but again, we don't have the full spectrum of rewards, so we don't know where that break-even point is.
Yes, and for all we know, the break-even point may be a paltry 3 wins. And I think a good way to kind of look at the difficulty of this is if for anybody who's played a lot of ladder, which I imagine is, a lot of people, how often have you gotten a 12-win streak on ladder? I imagine it's not very many people. And I'm not talking like 12 wins like from rank 25 up. I'm talking like, from say like rank like 19 up through like rank 10 or something. Because I think that's going to be probably a little bit more representative of what to expect.
It actually might even be higher than that, because if you have to pay 1,000 gold, it actually might be more similar to even rank 10 up, or potentially even rank 5 up, depending on exactly who is going in there. Because also keep in mind, this is, especially for 1 week, there's probably going to be a fair number of pro players and streamers in there as well, since it's going to be a good draw for their stream. I'm not saying that means you're guaranteed to go against a pro player, but keep in mind what the player pool is going to look like. It's probably going to be quite competitive.
Yeah, and I was actually about to mention that, is that like because there is a cost of entry here, you are not going to see the random guy who's playing his mid-range shaman deck who doesn't actually know how to pilot the deck. God bless them. So I would expect the quality of player that you're going to be playing against is probably going to be on average a bit higher than what you will see on ladder. But that being said, I think that you really shouldn't. This is not something that's intended for the casual player in the first place, and I think that the vlog by the developers kind of made it that clear as such, that this is not targeted toward the guy who plays Hearthstone once a week or whatever for a few hours and logs into Tavern Brawl just to get his free pack. Like, this is specifically targeted toward the players who, want to take the game much more seriously. And so it's rewarding those people in a sense for their time commitment and investment into the game. But yeah, as you mentioned before, like, it is going to be just a week, so anybody who is interested in testing themselves, I will be interested to see, because the thing is, even really good players, like in the context of Arena, for instance, like good players can get to 7 wins fairly, like on average, like they'll get to 6, 8 wins regularly. But even really good players higher than that, still need a bit of luck to get to 12 wins. And, I'm no professional at Hearthstone, but I would be interested to see if there's anybody who actually can even get to 12 wins without a fair bit of luck. So like the comments on Reddit that are saying like, oh, it's going to be much harder to get to thing because, luck is a factor. I think that luck is already a really heavy factor in getting 12 wins in Arena. I don't think it's really... Like, I don't think the argument that, like, oh, you might get paired up against a guy who's bad but has a good deck or vice versa really holds weight, because at the end of the day, if you got to 12 wins, like, there's going to be an element of luck in there where you won some coin flips or you lost some coin flips at the end of the day. I don't think that... I think they're just saying, like, oh, I don't like this because, there's a random chance element, or that there isn't a random chance element to balance it back out, is really an argument, because I think that if that is your complaint, this Tavern Brawl is not targeted toward you in the first place. Like this is very clearly intended for those people who approach this game with a lot of energy and passion and want to really see how well they can go. And again, I think that this is a really good opportunity for players who maybe don't have the time to grind up to legend, but are really interested to see how they hold up against some of the better players that the game has to offer. Players like you or myself who may not have necessarily gotten to legend because we have other things going on. Um, but would like to see, hey, like I think I'm pretty good at this game. Let's see if I can do it. Um,
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point. And I kind of like to circle back and touch on something that you did mention, which is some of the complaints have been around, oh, well, Tavern Brawl is supposed to be, this casual thing. Why is it replacing it? And I think what you said is actually fair in that saying Tavern Brawl is supposed to be casual is not actually the correct statement. It's that Tavern Brawl is supposed to be a different way to play the game than normal and to cater to different subsets of players. That subset of players does not always have to be the casual players. It's a different subset. In this case, it's the very competitive players, and I think your point of players who maybe don't have the time to reach legend, because reaching legend each month is proven to be a grind. Even if you're good, if you're not incredible but you're good, you can do it, but it is a time sink, a time that, as you correctly pointed out, not everyone has. So it does provide a little bit of a testing ground for that. What I am curious about is if this is just kind of another Tavern Brawl that maybe will come back eventually, or if they're doing this as more of a testing ground to see how popular it is, and to see that if a more kind of ultra competitive mode like this in the game really takes off, to decide if it's something that they do want to put into place permanently, either in this form or in another form, but to kind of gauge the overall player base's interest in a very competitive mode like this. So I am interested to see what the results of this are going to be.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think that a $10 entry is high enough to where you're going to you're going to turn off a lot of people who play this game and don't really spend a lot of money to it. But I think that there will be significant interest, and I think that honestly, like if they wanted to roll this out and have like the minimum negative comments as possible, I think they did the right thing by having the second image on the page be, a 12 win image of, like 50 booster packs and a bunch of golden legends and, thousands of gold and dust. Because really, like that's what you want people to do, is you want them to chase that, that big payoff.
Right.
Because I think had you not told people that, like, hey, this is what you could win for, your 12 wins, $10 is a hard sell in a game where, you're typically spending significantly less on that. I think a good comparison is like, hey, to enter this Tavern Brawl, you have to pay half of what you paid to get Karazhan. Like,
Yeah.
that's a full adventure where you're guaranteed lots of cards and, lots of decent cards, and I think while $10 is not a lot compared to other trading card games, I think that it's a hard sell for the Hearthstone community, given that it's just like a one-time fee that to get like basically a tournament entry.
Right. I mean, with that said, you and I have both, participated in, say, like Yu-Gi-Oh! Regionals, where it was 25, I want to say, to enter, and there were plenty of people entering that were very good, and that, were making a legitimate run at, getting to the World Championships, and there were other players that could not do better than, say, 2 wins in a round, an 8-round Swiss format, but would get nothing other than the experience itself out of over there anyway. But again, it is a little bit different. The Hearthstone community has slightly different expectations. So basically, what I'm saying is, I think we will get still some players in there who are not, at that like high level of play, but particularly once you get past a few wins, I think it is going to be quite competitive. So I am very interested to see if this is as I said, kind of a testing ground to see if a more permanent, very competitive mode is going to make sense for the game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
um, I, I think that it would be a good addition, in general. And I get the feeling that Hearthstone's been kind of looking for a mode like this for some time, some alternative to ladder that allows players to play competitively, but not have to grind out to legend each month.
Right.
So.
I mean, how long has the player base been asking for some sort of tournament mode in the client? So this maybe they're even considering the logistics of that and using this as a test to see, okay, well, how many players are going to be willing to put forth whether it be a large amount of in-game gold or real currency to participate in an ultra competitive mode. And if the turnout is big enough, then maybe that's when they decide, okay, this is worth the resources we need to put into building a tournament mode into the client. That's just speculation, but it makes sense that that could potentially be what they're looking at here.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, Tavern Brawl is intended to be a place where they can test wacky ideas.
Right.
Um, like the various game modes where they allow you to mix and match classes, or allow you to play cards that are way overpowered that like you wouldn't typically see. Like this is an avenue for them to test effects like this and see what kind of effect it has on the game,
Mhm.
and the overall fun of the game. So I think it would make sense that if they were if they were kind of mulling over the idea of introducing a tournament mode, that Tavern Brawl would be a adequate way to kind of gauge interest in it without having to bend around. And the best part about this from their perspective is that if it turns out that everybody hates it or nobody wants to spend $10 on this kind of thing, they can just say, it's only a week, and then it goes away.
Right. So to kind of wrap up, I'm going to get your prediction real quick. I'm assuming you are planning on trying it at least once, yes?
um that is a good question. I think I will try it. But again, time is kind of a factor. Because it's only active for a week, that means that if you have a unfinished run, on that Tuesday that it ends, that's just going to be it.
Yeah.
So, you are really incentivized to kind of sit down and play through it in a way that Arena doesn't typically incentivize you to do. Like
Yeah.
if you draft an Arena deck, you may not get back to it for 3 months, but like it will still be there.
So
Whereas this is
let's pretend time is not a factor. Let's say you can get through it. Your prediction, you try it. How many wins are you getting?
um I would say I could probably snag about 4 or 5 wins. That's about as confident as I am willing to claim.
Hmm.
Although I will say that I think most constructed players are going to overestimate their ability to complete the challenge.
I
So,
think that's a fair statement. I'm going to say about four for myself too. I might try more than one depending. I do have a bunch of gold sitting around, so I may try a couple runs, but we'll see. So for all of you guys out there who are going to try it, I hope you're either really good with Shaman or prepared to counter it, because you know it's going to be there. And yeah, give us your thoughts. I'm definitely interested to hear what you guys think. Tell us in the comments your thoughts on the Heroic Brawl. So thanks for watching, and we will see you soon.